Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Atom Podcast. I'm Ollie Thompson, and today I'm joined by Emil Donca, CTO at Not Capital. Hey, Emil.
Hey, Ollie.
So, Emil has had a pretty interesting career so far. He has worked pretty much across the entire spectrum of finance. He's worked on the sell side, the likes of Goldman's. He's worked buy side with Exodus Point and Flow Traders, and also worked at some sort of vendors like Torah. So, after all of that, and after learning a lot of things in his career so far, it's led him to not only become the CTO, but actually also co-founding Not Capital. Emil, do you want to do a bit of an introduction into who Not Capital
are? Sure, Ollie. Thank you. As you're saying, after working for quite a few years on the buy side and sell side as part of systematic trading businesses, I co-founded Not Capital with a mission to build high-performance software for the systematic trading firms. And the premise is that much of this software is highly reusable, and also for these companies, it would be much more cheap to buy than to build in-house. So we looked at the reasons why they would be reluctant to do that, and we are addressing these reasons at Not Capital. So in one sentence, we can say that we challenge the idea that high-performance trading software is best built in-house, and we commoditize and deliver exactly this type of software in the form of a few high-performance software building blocks for the systematic trading firms. Our vision is that technical excellence is a necessity in today's highly competitive trading environment rather than just a nice to have.
That's awesome. And I think from working with a number of hedge funds over the last decade, or half decade, I should say, one of the things that you find is that sometimes they are very much one-dimensional in the sense that they feel like the best way to do things is always by building in-house and having proprietary systems. And I think for you've highlighted it there, but you've almost created Not Capital with that in mind, and almost the mission statement is, we know the current sort of vision and sort of perception of what the sort of packaged product market looks like, and we want to assess that at the beginning and say that actually you can have high performance software with pretty incredible features whilst also not having to be in-house. Did you think that that's worked so well because you are a technologist? I mean, I think one of the most interesting things is, most of these firms are actually created by non-techies. They're created by the business, by traders, people that use the software. Whereas for you've probably seen it from a better sort of side of things, haven't you? Because you're the technologist. So how did you get to the point where you decided, let's build something that's both high performance with the relevant features? Is it because you saw that gap in the market and you realized that firms do have that perception that in-house must be better?
A lot of our thinking at Not Capital is centered on efficiency. So having been in the middle of building these highly complex software stacks, we noticed time and again how important it is for these companies to deploy their cash faster on the buy side, as well as serve the clients quicker, and this is very much a problem of efficiency. But then, on the other hand, it is very much the responsibility of a technologist to ensure that things go smooth. So a lot of the speed and time to market is actually in the hands of technologists. At the same time, we saw a lot of opportunity for reuse. So the technology that gets built in these trading firms is largely reusable. There is a lot of opportunity there for a vendor such as ourselves to commoditize this type of software. So you see these layers of increasing sophistication, and a lot of time goes into building those layers.
I think someone like yourself is probably in the absolute best position to do this, because you've worked across every spectrum of technology, a wide variety of firms. Is there any commonalities between those firms and their technology that has led you to be able to build a software that's probably inclusive of every firm possible out there?
Very much so. There is more and more commonality as you go towards the lower end of the spectrum. So I see, so seeing this software as layers that get built, there is increasing sophistication and also specificity as you go higher in the layers, and there is more reuse as you go lower. So by working on the lower layers, you can create products with a very wide audience. We can say, as long as you also implement them to be very fast.
Okay. So what you're basically saying is that from the experiences you've had so far, arguably, whether it's an investment bank, whether it's a faster trading firm, a slightly slower trading firm, the actual foundations of the infrastructure of the technology they use is a lot more similar than people may realize. And it's actually that last layer or two layers that differentiate between the firms.
That is the premise. Yes, we believe that maybe the last 10 to 5% of the software stack is really where the secret sauce of a systematic trading firm is, i.e., in the alpha generation. But this alpha has to be placed in a container, if you will, and this is what we have been building at Not Capital: a set of tools which are integrated together that facilitate as directly as possible the implementation of these trading ideas and obtaining a time to market that is as short as possible.
That's all. So you refer to them as algo containers or features, we could say. Yeah. So what you're basically saying is you've almost made your product agnostic across asset class, strategy, speed, and everything by not only building every layer bar the last layer in terms of that technology infrastructure, but you almost sort of you can create a different algo container on top to suit whichever firm you're selling it to. So you've really made a product that suits the entire industry in finance, as opposed to just a HFT or just a sort of macro fund. That's incredible.
It's really interesting, actually. Our suite of products are maximally non-specific to trading as a whole, and then from a point onwards, they are non-specific to the asset class that is traded. But of course, the last layers will have to be specific to everything that is done within the shop. So if you look at this from a software architecture perspective, there is a lot of opportunity for reuse, and a lot of what you do is actually not even specific to trading. So the so-called core teams, so core developers in the high frequency trading firms and even banks, they do a lot of so they work on a lot of technical tasks, many of which are not even trading related, so to speak. They have to do with performance, low latency, high throughput, language constructs, message passing, etc. So the backbone of a distributed trading ecosystem it's a very technical piece of work, and it can even be reused in other industries such as IoT or
So as a CTO, you not only founded the firm, you not only become the CTO, but by the sounds of things, you're one of the main people building this as well, right? So sure. The people investing in Not are also investing in Emil, the person, and you can almost sell your CV as part of the pitch when speaking to clients, right? To say, this is my experience, and it's what you'll get.
You have to, because one of the differentiators is that you've been exposed to the product life cycle as a whole, and you've been in places where trading strategies were being delivered on a regular basis, and you know what's the impact of being late. In one word, is exposure. Yes, you do have to sell yourself, your experience, and I'm lucky to have worked for a few prominent buy sides and sell sides.
Awesome. So I mean, every person listening now, or some people listening now, are probably going to be able to relate to you at some point in your career. They could be someone working at a vendor. They could be someone working on the buy side. It could be an ED at Goldman's like you once were. Now, some of these people would have similar ideas to yourself. They could have spotted gaps in the market. They could have a CV where they feel like they could add more value than they're adding now. Tell us about your journey. So, because Not was founded 2-ish years ago now, but by the sounds of things, you probably realized even before that there was an opportunity to build what Not is today. So, to relate to the people out there that are listening right now, when did you realize that there was this opportunity? When did you start creating the idea? And then actually, what was it that made you say, you know what, I'm going to go and do it? I'm going to risk it. I'm going to leave and I'm going to go and found this firm.
Sure. My trajectory was relatively smooth overall. I kept adding to my impression that everything I do starts to repeat itself, especially after a while. So that is the reusability argument. But on a more personal note, I always so I increasingly wished to own what I do, so the product of my work. And I think different things motivate different people, but for me, ownership is definitely a strong motivator. But that's, of course, that will be at odds with a lot of challenges that I wouldn't know that I will even encounter, and I was aware that I would encounter challenges that I don't even suspect when I started doing this. So there is a lot of course, a lot of risk, much more responsibility. Yeah, so it was reuse, and really the strong desire to own the product of my work.
Now, being a head onto myself, when I speak to people, you mentioned ownership there. You said that you felt the need to own something, which is it was quite a personal desire for yourself. And some I hear it a lot more than you think, really. And my natural tendency is to tell people that the further they move away from the sell side and the further they move towards the buy side, from a larger corporate firm to a slightly smaller firm, the more they're going to give themselves opportunities to own. And not only that, but your hands aren't tied. You have the freedom to choose your technology, everything that encompasses the buy side. You've made that move. And then it still hasn't fulfilled your entire needs. So what you've done is you've really pushed yourself at every point in your career to get yourself closer and closer towards ownership, to the extent that you said, you know what, even at the point on the buy side where this is probably the most freedom I'm going to get, it's still not enough for me. And so I have to create my own firm in order to get everything and get that full satisfaction. I don't think that ownership comes from a monetary standpoint. By the sounds of things, you're not interested in the money aspect. You're just a true technologist at heart, aren't you? And I think that given motivation has come from being so passionate about the technology that you've been working on and passionate about the job. So tell me about that passion. Have you always been sort of a technologist at heart through universities, through every job you've had? You've been a techie rather than a quant or a trader? You've never wanted to get exposure to the front line?
Yeah, very good point. So yeah, the vision does have the desire to give stewardship to a technical trading shop, and this relates a lot to the efficiency that I was talking about earlier, and foremost with the idea that efficiency can be monetized, because efficiency is no one's KPI normally in these companies. It is so hard. I think it's impossible to quantify how efficient they are. But from my experience, efficiency is lagging a lot. But then the premise is that efficiency can be monetized if it's achieved, and it's important. Going back to the technologies that might identify with parts that I'm saying. It's important to realize that you will not be able to sell software engineering excellence on its own. You will have to very much make this big step of showing how efficiency is commercializable, actually, and that's it's kind of a no man's land between having a product that is awesome technically, but proving with numbers how much more is it going to give you as a systematic trading shop. It's a hard thing to do.
So who's the target market then? Who are we looking at? Because I think we have to be realistic here in thinking that firms take years, decades in order to build this software that they can class as competing. And although you've got a huge tenure behind you, not itself, it's only a few years old. So are you sort of, is there a correlation between the age of the firm and maybe your target audience to begin with? And the further down the line your product develops, the wider the audience will get?
Sure. So from a software making perspective, things are best done in a certain order, but this is the complexity of doing that is compounded by the complexity of building things in such a way that you can sell them along the way. So it's very true that we are working towards a mature product that has already institutional grade quality in most of its layers, but not everywhere. So corners do need to be cut, and the art is really in which corners can you cut? How are you going to navigate this long journey, to your point, that is to build a mature product that can address a sophisticated market, which we are after. So we're talking about professional portfolio managers in hedge funds, and which have really performance sensitive, sophisticated trading strategies, and not to mention banks, which have very important needs of having a resilient product and continuity of business. It's really hard from a technology perspective to guarantee things like this.
So you don't necessarily need to sell to businesses. You can also sell to individuals who have that entrepreneurial spirit to maybe go and do something themselves. And I mean, arguably, from what I've seen so far this year, as much as you maybe, well, no one could ever anticipate that COVID was going to happen, but what a great time for something like Not Capital to be available. The amount of people I've spoken to on the market that are very, very senior PMs that unfortunately have had strategies that for the last decade have worked perfectly, and for the last year have obviously been completely disrupted by the market. They've had, sort of momentum tracker mode trading strategies that unfortunately haven't landed the way that they wanted to. Surely this is the best opportunity for them to consider something like Not Capital and say, you know what, let me do it myself.
Very much so. At Not Capital, we're trying to be orthogonal on the alpha that gets developed. So while I'm very interested about the ideas that work and don't work, and I've seen a few things, as technologists at the core, we are trying to cater for as wide range of strategies as possible. And indeed, the year has been, it's been a unique year. But effectively, we don't even need to know the alpha that goes into that is built on top of our product. This is how we facilitate secrecy.
I was going to talk about secrecy. I think there's the second aspect of worry that people have when buying a third-party sort of packaged product rather than in-house is how secure it can be from that secrecy standpoint. You make sure that as much as you can keep everything as secret as possible in terms of a firm's trading strategies, if they require support, it sounds like your firm also is on hand to help them with that as well, right?
Yes, so we are careful to facilitate a business model where we never see their strategy and we don't even see their order trades flow. So because rightfully so, I think some firms are paranoid about their IP, and we very much respect that, and we are able to deliver everything as a software package, and coach people and have a mixed business model where we offer some kind of limited consultancy for a while, but then they would be on their own and they would continue to iterate through their strategy ideas.
So they're almost buying the full stack. Sometimes you hear about these firms that offer an aspect of it or just provide the product itself, but it sounds like you're providing the full service, which I think can help a lot of people. Now that you're there and reflecting, and maybe looking at 2020 not capital compared to 2018, there'll be a lot of entrepreneurial mindset individuals listening to this podcast that may be working as a technologist in a bank or in a fund. Talk to them about the challenges that you faced, and sort of being completely honest, reflecting now, it hasn't been a smooth ride, I presume. I mean, looking at 2020 now, you've got clients on board, you're fully functioning, it's looking great, but you must have faced challenges between 2018 and now. What were some of those challenges that you can expect to face in a sort of startup firm like this?
By far, the biggest challenge is simply the fact that the space is very crowded. It's a highly competitive environment. And part of it is because a lot of people, so there is a very low barrier to entry in writing some software or in testing some strategies, some trading strategies. And a lot of people wonder, and there are these trading ideas floating around, but actually to have the capability of testing them, to validate or discard them is hard work. So in terms of challenge, I think that by far the biggest challenge was due to the fact that you have to be willing to put a lot of upfront effort in building something that works. There's no way you're going to sell an idea. Yeah. I knew from the start I'm in for 1 to 2 years of really hard work before I can even think about selling it or talking about it. I did talk a little bit about it with a few close friends, but between 2018 and 2020, only this year we were in a position to deploy the full stack, and for the stack to actually work 24/5 in a live trading environment, and being able to accommodate a custom strategy that trades whatever.
So you spent 2 years building. Now, some people would worry about let's hire a team of BD experts. We need to sell this thing. For you, have you taken a sort of easier path? I mean, with someone with the sort of career you have so far, surely you know a lot of people yourself. So is that made it easier for you as well to sell, knowing that you can leverage your network?
Very much so. So there are a few client personas for which you can leverage your network, a few for which you can't. What's great about this software and the reusability of it is that there are a few different business directions that is not even so commoditization goes a really long way, and it even transcends the trading software industry. For example, we got the attention of hardware manufacturers and we are discussing something like creating a joint product in the space that goes beyond trading. So I think performance definitely has a way to sell itself, and a lot of with the explosion of the amount of data, I think it's you are being listened to if you are highly performing in your software.
So actually, you probably didn't realize it 10, 15 years ago, but your network that you've developed over time, you can now reflect upon and say, actually, thank God I have had that career, because without that, this part now would have been a lot harder. It's hard to give advice to people about that, because you can't advise people to work at various firms, whatever, but certainly building your network up, whether you're a junior technologist now, or maybe a very senior person looking to maybe do something similar to what you've done now. Building up your network is a huge aspect of how to be successful in the short term. And then the second aspect, as you mentioned earlier, is not just coming up with an idea and trying to sell it to people, but actually investing your own time in developing that idea into a product and making sure that it's the absolute best it can possibly be. Sacrifice that time in the short term so that when you go to market, you don't have to worry about breaking and fixing and having bad experiences with clients, but you can take what you've built and grow it along the way. That sacrifice must have been tough, those 2 years prior.
Yes, but it's necessary, because then you are more free to address a few common needs that exist, but then you are not swayed into serving one particular client. So from building this, from the perspective of building out the stack, it was quite important to lay the foundation well so that we can deal with the specifics later. And on the network aspect, I do admit there was a time when I underestimated the importance, the value that network had, and there is a huge benefit to be had from working in a place of top reputation, where you can work alongside top quality people, and because you grow together with these people, and the relationships endure, so they go beyond of course the time that you spent there.
Okay, so you've got the experience, you've built the network. Can we just finally talk about the sort of common traits that someone would typically need to be in a position like yourself to found a business like this? What traits are there typically that you find in yourself, that you maybe find in your colleagues as well, that really help when trying to start up a business like this, from the sacrifice but also the complexity?
You definitely have to sacrifice stability for ownership and for what you get by working in a place which has your own stewardship. There is a huge risk, and you sacrifice stability. There is a reason why these shops have a certain size. I mean, decision taking is much harder in a small shop. It's just so risky.
I mean, there used to be a perception that, you know, the entrepreneur back in the day, similar to how maybe the trader was perceived as, you know, the sort of without sort of going down the gender route, but the sort of alpha male, extroverted, strong-willed. And by no means am I saying that you're not sort of strongly opinionated in a great way. I think you probably built up, as you say yourself, a reputation at Goldman's that you certainly did have an opinion and you were happy to voice it. But that doesn't typically always need to be the case, does it? As long as you're passionate about something and you've got enough experience to understand that you have the ability to make a difference, to create something, develop something that's going to provide an edge to a firm. You don't necessarily need to be the numbers person or the product person. You just follow that passion and you get to where you are now, right?
Yes. If you keep seeing missed opportunity for years and years, if you see these patterns at a large number of companies that do related things, then you become increasingly sure of your vision, I guess. And at some point, you have accumulated enough to go on your own and say, okay, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to build this. So you don't have to be an extrovert to do that, but you do have to be. You have to make sure that what you're doing is monetizable. Of course, there is a definite need for that, and that means that you must have spent this time in companies seeing how things are done.
Perfect. Emil, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I think for anyone listening now, it really does appeal to the business aspect. So people that maybe are in a position where they don't know what to do with their careers, and they could be seeing Not Capital as an opportunity for them to finally pursue something that they didn't think was possible. They thought they maybe had to hire technologists to build things for them, wait a year, as opposed to just taking your product and going with it straight away. I think for the technologists at the moment within the industry that are thinking of what their next step may be, seeing your progression from lack of ownership more closely towards ownership, freedom of technology, going from sell side to buy side, getting that experience is taking you to the point where maybe quite uniquely for yourself, you still weren't satisfied, so you had to go that step further and found something. But I think your natural career progression has certainly helped a lot of people understand what options they have moving forward. Not Capital is going to have, by the sounds of things, a pretty interesting 2021. For my viewers that listen to the podcast quite regularly, if you're on YouTube, I'm drinking out of a pretty interesting sort of bird flowery mug today, and unfortunately aren't at the point right now where they've got the merch to send over. I'm trying to sort of collect my coffee mugs as we go with the guests, but I'm sure once the website is completely pristine and not in a better position in 2021, the coffee mugs will be sent over and they'll be on their way. But no, in all seriousness, it's been an absolute pleasure, Emil. You're an absolute gent. I'm sure 2021 will be awesome. If anyone wants to get in contact with Emil, I will include his LinkedIn details on the release of this. You can reach out to him, connect with him, research Not Capital any further, ask any questions you have. If you're interested in any investment, once again, reach out to him. But last thing from me, thank you so much. I wish you all the best for 2021 and have an awesome Christmas and New Year before this is released.
Thanks a lot, Ollie.
No worries, pleasure.
Same to you.